BIONICLE, The Legend Reborn. Written by Greg Farshty. Reading by Shadowcaber. Chapter 2. Matanui followed a car to his shelter in the village. The Glatorian began packing items into a satchel, explaining that he was due to fight another match in the village of Tessara. The walls of the shelter were lined with Glatorian shields, trophies of Akar's past victories. "You won all these?" asked Matanui. "Yes, and look what good they do me," Akar answered, making no attempt to hide his bitterness. "Should have packed it in long ago." "But you stayed. Why?" Akar paused a moment before answering. When he spoke again, he sounded less bitter than sad. Duty. Pride. But a Glatorian past his prime's no good to anyone. To be defeated without a fight would be dishonor. You carry this truth inside you, as do I. You are a true Toa, said Matanui. Toa? Where I come from, Matanui began. Then he stopped, as if not sure how to explain himself. Finally, he said, "It is a name given to a select few warriors, worthy of..." Matus burst into the shelter, practically leaping in the air with excitement. "Matanui, you were brilliant! Ranu will pay anything we ask, and if you don't like this village, no problem. I'll get the other leaders to bid for you." "That is very kind," said Matanui, "but no." Matus looked at Matanui as if he had just said he wanted to be a target dummy for the scrawl. "Are you crazy? Do you realize what you're passing up? The life of a first Glatorian." "Yes, just look how great it worked out for me," Akar muttered. "The answer is still no." Okay, I hear you. But when you change your mind..." Matanui held firm. "I will not." "Playing hard to get, eh?" "I can respect that. Soon enough you'll come around, begging for me to take you back." Matanui took a step toward Matus, obviously not amused by the suggestion. Matus took a step back. "Okay, that's a joke. You'd never beg." "I'm going now." Matus turned and rushed out of the shelter. Akar laughed at the sight, and after a moment, Matanui joined him. "So, stranger, what are your plans?" asked Akar. "I must begin searching for a way back to my homeland. Which is... You will think it sounds crazy. No crazier than jumping into an arena armed with only a stinger tail and that thing," Akar said, gesturing toward the scarabax perched on Matanui's shoulder. "True. My home is far from this place. On another world entirely," said Matanui. "I was once its protector, until I lost everything to a powerful evil that has enslaved my people. That is why I must find a way back." A blue-armored Glatorian suddenly sprang from the shadows near the door, startling them both. "I knew it! Woohoo! Proof of what I've been saying for years!" shouted the newcomer. "Kina, what are you..." Akar snapped. "This is not the place." Their visitor was female. She was tall and wiry, and looked as if she would be a formidable foe in a fight. Right now, though, she was either extremely happy or completely insane. Matanui wasn't sure which, and he wasn't in the mood to take chances. Matanui went for his weapon. "Just who is this?" Akar reached out to restrain Matanui. "Wait, she's..." The female Glatorian came right up close to Matanui. "Name's Kina, a Glatorian, one of the best. And you just won me a lot of bets." She turned to Akar. "Kina's delusional. There's no such thing as other worlds." "Yeah? Well, he proves there are." Akar gently guided Matanui's arm down, so that his sword was pointed at the floor. "It's okay. Although I don't always agree with her methods, such as lurking in the shadows. As Glatorian go, Kina ranks. I'd trust her with my life, and have, more than once." Matanui looked from Akar to Kina. He still thought she was unbalanced, but if she was a friend of Akar's, well, he had to take his allies where he could find them now. "Good to meet you, Kina," he said. The scarabax on his shoulder clicked its approval. Kina looked at the insect with undisguised revulsion. So what they're saying is true? She asked Akar. Akar nodded. She turned back to Matanui. Let me guess. You call him Click, she said, more than a little sarcasm in her voice. The Scarabax, as if sensing her contempt, lashed out with a pincher and clicked angrily. She took a step back. Hey, I was just kidding. Matanui smiled. Actually, I like it. Click it is. Kino walked in a wide circle around Matanui, checking him out from every angle. She had always dreamed of meeting someone from another planet. Somehow, though, she had thought they would look less like the other Glatorians she knew. It was an exciting moment just the same. Wow, a real otherworlder, she said. Finally, someone to convince the Agori there's a better place than this miserable wasteland. Akar frowned. He considered Kina a good friend, but he also knew she could be selfish. He didn't want to see Matanui used. He needs our help, Kina. I owe him, he said. Kina looked right at Matanui. Help, huh? I might be able to do something for you, but I'm going to want something in return. She moved closer, her helmet practically touching Matanui's mask. I want out of this dump. You have to take me with you. Kina, said Akar, shaking his head. It's all right, said Matanui. He studied Kina for a moment, then said, If it's within my power, I will take you. But the time to help my people is running out. No problem, Kina said, smiling. I work fast. What do you have in mind, Kina? Asked Akar. He didn't know of any way to get off Barra Magna. Well, I discovered an enormous cavern under my village. It's filled with weird, ancient equipment and tools. It might have something you can use. Word of warning, though? She pointed an armored finger at Matanui. Don't even think of pulling a fast one, 'cause you're my ticket out of here. Whose bright idea was this again? Kina asked herself. She, Akar, and Matanui were in a borrowed dune chariot, on their way to the water village of Tejun. It was dawn. Traveling in daylight was not Kina's idea of a good time. It didn't take long for the temperature to soar in the desert of Barra Magna. If the vehicle kept running, they would make it to the village before high sun. But dune chariots were notoriously unreliable, and this one looked to be patched and repaired a dozen times over. She would have been happier riding her sandstalker, but the animal was ill. Heat wasn't the only worry. There was no cover out in the middle of the trackless wastes. Granted, the savage Voroks would be more likely to hunt at night, but in full sunshine, bone hunters could see potential victims coming a mile away. Of course, there is some good news, thought Kina. You can see them, too. Matanui pointed toward a canyon up ahead. Is the cavern in that canyon? Kina shook her head. No, it's near Tejun, my village, just beyond that canyon. Akar wasn't listening. His eyes were scanning the horizon, looking for threats. It had not been that long ago that bone hunters had attacked Volcanus, and Skrull had sacked the free city of Atero. No place on Barra Magna was safe, least of all the wastelands between villages. Had he been able to see what was going on behind him, Akar would have been even more worried. Shortly after their departure from Volcanus, an Agori slipped out of the village. Making his way up into the rocks, he ran into two bone hunters on their rock steeds. Bone hunters were an unusual breed. Distantly related to the rock tribe of Roxtus, they were nomadic bandits. They lived in the desert, surviving on stew made from the thornax plant, and whatever they could steal. They were excellent trackers and unafraid to go after prey even in the worst heat of the day. Normally, they robbed and killed their victims. Lately, they had begun kidnapping Glatorian, for reasons unknown. Under ordinary circumstances, an Agori who encountered a bone hunter would scream and run. But these weren't ordinary circumstances, and this Agori was right where he had planned to be. The Glatorian are heading for Tejun, he told the two riders. You know what to do. The two bone hunters glanced at each other. They weren't used to taking orders from villagers. Agori were for robbing, after all. but it had been made clear to them that this Agori's word was to be obeyed. So they grunted something close to a yes and rode off. The Agori watched them go. He didn't trust the bone hunters. What sane being would? But he needed them. Left on their own, they were a dangerous element, unpredictable and wild. But bribed with weapons and water, they could be tamed and used. And once they were no longer useful... He smiled then. A little smile with no cheer in it. Then he turned back to Vulcanus. He couldn't let his absence be noticed by anyone. Not when he was so close to achieving his goals. So it was time to go back to playing the role of trusted Agori. A little eccentric, maybe, but all in all, a good being to have around. And all the while, he would be laughing inside at the thought of what waited for the fools of the Fire Village. "I don't like this," said Akar. "It's the perfect place for an ambush." The dune chariot had reached the mouth of the canyon. Places like this made the red-armored Glatorian wary. It hadn't been that long ago that he had helped set up an intricate series of traps in Iron Canyon for a bone hunter raiding party. All the skill of the bandits had not helped them at all in a place where they were stuck on a narrow path, being picked off by Glatorian hidden among the rocks above. "Please," said Kina. "Even bone hunters aren't stupid enough to take on 3 Glatorian." This, of course, was a lie, and she knew it. With the element of surprise on their side, bone hunters would try almost anything. But she didn't want Motunui to get nervous and decide he wanted off this ride. Akar knew exactly what she was doing, and he wasn't planning to let her get away with it. He owed Motunui. If they were going to expose him to danger, he had a right to know what kind and how nasty things were likely to get. "They're getting bolder," he said to Kina. There was an edge in his voice that said, "Watch it, I'm onto you." "Skrull too. In the past few months, they've seemed to know our every move before we make it." "True," Kina conceded. "But don't worry. It's not like we've got much worth stealing." "Well, maybe Motunui does." The Scarabax beetle sitting on Motunui's shoulder clicked its pincers in enthusiastic agreement. "I was talking about his blade, Bugface." Kina snapped at the beetle and shook her head. "I can't believe I'm talking to an insect." Motunui did not crack a smile. "In my experience, when an enemy knows too much, it can only mean one thing. You have a traitor on your hands." Akar nodded. "I was thinking the same thing. But who?" A low rumbling sound filled the air. The ground beneath the chariot began to shake violently. Then the rumbling became a roar, as up ahead, the earth buckled and heaved. "I think we have a bigger problem," Kina yelled. The ground exploded. A massive crimson creature rose up on 4 great legs and let out an ear-splitting roar. Motunui had never seen anything like it. It was at least 40 feet tall, part animal and part machine. Its legs sported massive treads and ended in vicious claws. Sharp pincers extended from both sides of its jagged mouth. When it took a step, the earth shook, and the chariot was headed straight for it. "Scopio!" shouted Akar. He had seen this creature once before, from a distance. Getting this close to one was something he could have lived without. "We should turn back," said Motunui. "Can't," Akar said, pointing behind the chariot. "They're even deadlier." Motunui turned. A group of black-armored riders mounted on reptilian creatures were riding across the sands in pursuit of the chariot. Each held a sword aloft in the air and shouted war cries as they rode. "What are they?" asked Motunui. "Bone hunters," Akar answered, "and a lot of them." "My village! There's another Glatorian there," said Kina, leaning forward in the driver's seat. "We just have to make it there." Kina turned the wheel and aimed the chariot at the narrow gap between the Scopio's left foreleg and the canyon wall. The creature's eyes narrowed, and it whipped its leg to the side, blocking the vehicle. Kina yanked on the wheel, sending the chariot into a skid right in front of the beast. "Hang on tight!" yelled Kina. The Scopio slammed its right foreleg into the sand, missing the chariot by centimeters. Kina drove it up the side of the canyon wall. The beast swung again, and missed. Kina vaulted the chariot off the wall and over a dune, but she wasn't quite fast enough. The Scorpio landed a glancing blow, sending the chariot tumbling end over end and hurling the 3 occupants onto the sand. Akar and Matanui rolled to their feet, weapons drawn, facing the oncoming bone hunters. "Help Kina," Matanui said to Akar. "I'll draw the beast away from you." "Good luck," said Akar, dropping into a crouch to await the first attacker. Matanui glanced down at Click. "Are you ready?" The beetle snapped its pincers together in response. Then there was a bright flash as it transformed once more into a mighty shield. Matanui charged toward the Scorpio. Behind him, Akar and Kina were both locked in battle. Kina parried a bone hunter's sword with her staff, looking for an opening. When she saw the hunter drop his guard, she struck, landing a solid blow with her weapon and hurtling him from his rock steed. 2 more bone hunters closed in. Kina moved like quicksilver, keeping her enemies off balance with sweeping kicks. Nearby, Akar was surrounded, fierce but outnumbered. Fighting mounted warriors on foot is a losing game, he thought, so it's time to even the odds a little. A bone hunter rode down on him, sword flashing in the sunlight. Akar blocked the hunter's blade with his own. As the bone hunter drew back to strike again, Akar launched himself into the air and landed a solid kick, knocking the bone hunter out of the saddle. The Glatorian landed atop the rock steed and urged it forward. Up ahead, Kina was hard-pressed in a fight against a bigger, stronger bone hunter. Akar rode toward her, battling the hunters on either side of him. As he drew close to the canyon wall, he hurled himself from the saddle, somersaulting in the air, once, twice, 3 times. He came out of the move feet first, slamming into Kina's opponent and knocking him senseless. Now Kina and Akar stood back to back as the bone hunters closed in. Matanui was having problems of his own with the Scorpio. Its attention was now fully focused on him, which was what he wanted. Its blows were coming dangerously close to landing, though, and Matanui had learned at least this about his new body. It grew tired. And if he slowed down even a step, the Scorpio would finish him. The great beast, meanwhile, was growing impatient. It was time to crush this golden-armored pest. The Scorpio concentrated, triggering the mechanical Thornax launcher built into it ages ago. With a hiss of hydraulics and a metallic hum, the launcher rose from the creature's back and locked into place. Taking aim at Matanui, the Scorpio fired. Matanui stopped dead. For just a moment, he watched the beast's transformation in disbelief. That delay almost cost him his life, as he barely got his shield up in time to take the brunt of the blast. Even with its protection, he was still knocked off his feet. The Scorpio advanced, lifting a clawed leg into the air, ready to crush him. Matanui rolled to dodge the blow, landing neatly in a crouch. This time, he'd be ready for the Scorpio's next attack. Behind him, he heard the sound of Kina's voice. "Akar," she said, "we're finished unless we can make it to my village." "Try and get to the chariot," Matanui yelled to the 2 Glatorian. "I have an idea." When the Scorpio swung a leg at him again, Matanui didn't try to move aside. Instead, he launched into the air and grabbed onto the leg. As the Scorpio drew its limb back, Matanui was pulled high into the air. When he was at the same level as the monster's head, Matanui jumped off the leg and landed on the Scorpio's back. It took Matanui only a moment to figure out the controls for the mounted Thornax launcher. Aiming at the bone hunters menacing Akar and Kina, he fired. The blast scattered the hunters like grains of sand before a fierce wind. Akar and Kina took advantage of the opening to run for the chariot. Bone hunters who pursued them were met by another devastating Thornax blast, courtesy of Matanui. Angered by its unwanted rider, the Scorpio whipped its stinger tail forward, knocking Matanui off his perch. He twisted in midair and managed to land on his feet on a high ledge. Down below, Akar and Kina had reached the vehicle and were speeding toward the Scorpio, hoping to slip underneath the creature. Mounted bone hunters galloped close behind. Matanui drew his sword and plunged it into the rock beneath his feet. The power of the blade split the stone, sending half of it tumbling down the mountainside. It struck other boulders, knocking them loose. Soon, the whole mountainside seemed to be moving, stones careening down in a huge rock slide. Kina heard the sound of the avalanche and saw the first rocks strike the sand up ahead. "This is going to be close," she yelled to Akar, pushing the chariot to full speed. The metal frame of the vehicle shook violently, bolts snapping off and flying in every direction. Spotting a gap barely large enough for the chariot, Kina aimed right for it. The vehicle shot through it and onto open sand, just as the rain of rock brought the Scorpio down with a tremendous crash. The bone hunters weren't so lucky. They were under the creature as it fell, buried beneath its body and a ton of rock. As they neared the mouth of the canyon, Kina allowed herself a relieved sigh. Then she suddenly realized someone was missing. "Hey, where?" Akar pointed off to the east. "There!" Kina saw him now, too. Matanui was surfing down the side of the mountain on his shield, vaulting over outcroppings as if he had been doing it all his life. One particularly large rock sent him high into the air. He somersaulted, grabbing his shield and spinning into an upright position just in time to land on the hood of the chariot. Akar laughed. "Gutsiest move I've ever seen." "Woohoo! Those bone hunters are going to be eating Scorpio belly for weeks," Kina said, smiling broadly. "Not bad, Otherworlder." Akar's grin abruptly vanished from his face. He laid a hand on Kina's arm, as if to steady her against a shock. She glanced at him, then up ahead, and that's when she saw it. A plume of black smoke rose from the nearby oasis. Flames shot through the cloud of ash and soot. As they drew nearer, Kina could hear the sound of shelters collapsing, sandstalkers screeching in fear and pain, and something even more chilling, the war cries of Skrull. Tejun was burning. End of Chapter 2.